Welcome back to our channel. I'm Alexa, your netball bestie, and together with Jenna, this is Your Netball Besties. We've got drama, big plays, and some emotional milestones to unpack this week.
It's a split round 3, so we only have 2 games this weekend. We have Giants versus Mavericks and Thunderbirds versus Swifts.
We're also going to talk about some major changes that we noticed during the broadcast this weekend, as well as some highlights of the Liz Watson interview that aired Sunday night. And we're also going to touch on some updates around Fowler-Nembhard's return to the SSN season. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel, like this video, and turn on that little bell notification so you never miss any of our videos. Our first game of the weekend was Giants versus Mavericks.
So the final score was Mavericks 71 to Giants 56.
Let's talk about this game because Mavs got their first win of the season. So it was a big deal for them. As we were watching this game, Jenna and I were just sending each other little voice messages as we do, giving our opinions on essentially what's going on. We've been getting a lot of comments about Jenna's voice not being as loud as mine. I am naturally a loud talker, as Jenna has just informed me. But Jenna has been a little bit unwell for a couple of weeks now, not just today, but it seems to have hit a bit of a peak. So we do apologise for that. She's trying her best. So this game was a little bit up and down, went back and forth. It was hard to really predict where it was going. At the same time, by halftime, there seemed to be a lot of clear momentum with the Mavericks, that the Giants just fell into chase mode, and that really didn't seem to change from there. We had the changes in defense for Giants, which again, the exact same changes they made last round, which worked really well for them, which was to bring Tilly in, have her in the circle with O'Brien, and then move Ward out to WD. That seems to work really, really well.
Yeah, no, I quite like that defensive lineup.
Ward was making some really, really risky attempts. Like, she was flying throughout that game. I actually don't think she got any clean intercepts at all, but she had, I would say, at least 8 flying attempts, some of which were a little bit late, and there was, some collisions. Very much seemed to be that was her gameplay for that day. I really want to point out how impressed I have been with Matisse. Every time she comes onto the court for Giants, she started as a player that seemed quite timid. I would say almost kind of like what we see now in Olivia Wilkinson. So she came on with a lot of potential, and the potential's there, but she was weak on the take, weak on the body contest, all those sorts of things. But she seems to have really grown in that role to the point where now I would argue that she is the better starting GS over Jo Harten.
I would agree, and I was actually really hoping that Matisse coming on would have happened a lot earlier than it did, because, Harden's a great player within her own right, but when she is in the circle, you can tell things are a bit more stiff and stagnant and there's less flow. Whereas, for a defender, all you need to do with Harden is hold her high and she's stuck. She can't get around you. Whereas when Matisse comes in, it just helps that flow with Dwyer, and that takes a bit of pressure off Dwyer as well.
Yes, we did have a chat about this during the game as well. Dwyer seems to be a player who entered into the SSN with a bang. She, was invited to join the Diamonds, obviously, and her career and the expectations on her seemed to be quite high very early on, as she came in, I guess, with the inception of the 2-point shot, and she was just superb with it. And then her and Jo Harten together were just super shot queens. But then something's happened where the growth seems to have stagnated. We're not seeing the same impact that we saw from her debut season.
Giants are one of the most unchanged sides, and maybe it's become a little, predictable. There's nothing new, and she's grown as much as she can in that particular environment. For her personal growth, I'd maybe like to even see her, around new shooters. You can only grow so much to a point.
Yeah.
Before it's time to leave. But
she is in the Diamonds camp environment as well. Well, she was around, your Steph Fretwells. She's around Kira Austin. We don't know what's being said, I guess behind closed doors in the Giants environment, how they're actually being directed to play. Perhaps that is a part of it. The commentators made a really interesting comment about wanting to see a Matisse and Joe combination on the court. I'm not sure how Joe would go in a GA position for many minutes, but it was an interesting concept. I wouldn't mind seeing it. It's just not working.
Yeah. 2
occasions quite close together where Dwyer was under the post, pretty much undefended. The defenders were, I think, on the edge of the circle or outside of the circle on these occasions.
I think it was in 2-point time. They were desperately trying to get to the 2, but they couldn't even pass it around the circle because everyone was being manned. Yeah.
The issue wasn't that she was standing under the post. The issue was that when she was passed a clean pass under the post on 2 occasions, she went from what was a fairly stable standing position to falling out of the court off balance and then needing to do a desperate pass out to a teammate, and on both occasions causing a turnover. I just don't understand what caused that, because on both occasions she was fairly still, undefended. I'm not sure why on both occasions she was falling out of court.
I mean, yeah, I think it is interesting. Could that be that she was feeling the pressure of the moment, desperately wanting the 2s and sort of just stressing herself out? But at the end of the day, if you're under the post, you're undefended, take the shot.
But if you're looking for a 2, why are you standing under the post?
Yeah.
Like, it's just...
Yeah.
It just didn't make sense on those occasions. For, the first time you can kind of excuse it as like, oh gosh, that's bad luck, poor girl, like, was off balance. But on 2 occasions, those feeds were perfect.
Yeah, it was really interesting. I don't know. I think to the Mavs' credit, I think they've figured out Giants' game plan. Giants are a team that notoriously they'll hold on while they can in regular time and then try and make up the gap in super shot time. And Mavs clicked onto that very early on and sort of prevented that. So could have been a bit of pressure there, but yeah, it was really odd. It was odd.
We saw Jock took a little bit of a knock to the face, so it looked like an eye injury.
Yeah.
Like, she looked really uncomfortable for a long time. I guess we were wondering if she was going to get benched for a little bit, looked over by the doctor, but that didn't happen. She pulled through. And I guess it had me thinking, who on earth would they put on in that moment? Like, they don't have anyone else that is, like, experienced or reliable. There's no more depth in the shooting end because obviously Sasha was on injury rest. And Unique was already out there.
I'm sure they were holding their breath when that happened.
Yes, 100%.
Speaking of 100 though, 100 games for Shimona Jock.
Oh, amazing. Congratulations, Shimona. What a great milestone for you.
One thing I did notice as well is similar from last week when the game sort of started, once again, the Mavs attackers struggling to sort of get that ball into Jock and figure out where to place it. And this seems to be a bit of an ongoing issue that Mavs are having because, as you said previously, Jock's not hard to feed. It's easy. You just got to get that ball. So I think they just need to work on that pinpoint accuracy because there are some of them that were a tad too flat and they were lucky to get there.
Yeah, and we know that Jock is so capable and flexible and has a good reach that she can almost make any bad pass look good, but even she couldn't make some of those.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like you said, it was really good to see that improve throughout the game and they really fixed that up. And then I don't think we saw the same errors towards the end of the
they
second
definitely,
half.
I think, second half Mavs definitely clocked in. But also speaking of improvement, the Mavs defence, I must say, watching them over the weeks, I can see such a big improvement in their game. They're now having more impact. They're staying in play more. And they were turning over ball.
Yeah.
They were getting ball for their team, which is really good to see. So I've been impressed by them.
Brown was certainly putting Dwyer under pressure and doing her job there. There was a little moment where there was, in the circle where Brown got called for a penalty and she wasn't hearing, she looks at the umpire really confused because the umpire was telling her it was for outside of the circle. It was a moment where JLP literally just dragged her dress and pulls her out of the circle, which I thought was quite funny.
An honourable mention again to Erin O'Brien. I think the youngster has been doing so incredibly well in that starting GK. She had such a great game this game. She intercepts, turned over ball, applied pressure. She's really doing well in that position. So I think it's well deserved.
Especially against a player like Jock.
Oh, yeah.
Like when you have such a challenge, which is pretty much any of the really tall shooters that we have now in SSN, if your job is against them and you're still able to create that pressure and the confusion, we were just mentioning earlier that there was a lot of adjustment to do with the feeding towards Jock. I think that goes to credit to O'Brien for creating that confusion and creating that doubt.
No, definitely.
So the second game of the weekend is Swifts versus Thunderbirds. What was the score for this, Jenna?
This was 65-57, and not the way you might think.
No.
The Swifts took the win in this game.
They did, and I did a TikTok where I was reacting to the first quarter because it was just so shocking, and no one expected the first quarter to go that way, and then obviously it didn't age well.
Yeah, I mean, in the first quarter, the Swifts were kept to single-digit goals scored until the last minute 30 of the game. They only had 9 scored.
Well, I mean, in that first quarter, I literally said to you, Thunderbirds are playing perfect netball.
Yeah.
Like, they are having a perfect season. And then it just all started to change quite quickly, didn't it?
Yeah, that second half just complete flip.
So we could see in the first quarter that the Thunderbirds were very much in Swift's heads. It seemed to be a mental game, 100%, and Thunderbirds had the upper hand. But the Swifts did what I can only describe as such a incredible mental turnaround. There's no doubts about it. We both knew that these teams, technically and skill-wise, were going to deliver a fairly even contest. What won out in this competition was the fact that Swifts were able to mentally get their shit together, realise they could still win, and not get disheartened at the scoreboard and the momentum that the Thunderbirds had on them in the first quarter.
So that was definitely what changed it for them, because even in the first quarter and first half, we saw some just silly passes, unforced errors, throwing ball out of court. We saw some, I think there was at one point, Verity threw a ball, tried to bounce it through Housby, and it just went right through Housby's legs out of court, and it was just like, oh, girl, it's like...
The shots to Bryony's face.
Yeah. So whatever she said to them at that halftime break was needed, and it clearly had the impact it needed. But also, notably, we had Dame Nolly and Tarura at the game too. So the big guns were called in. So I wonder 100%. If that as well helped.
Well, like I was saying to you, those two coaches together is basically the New Zealand coaching team with Mweki that kicked our Australian butts. So they are definitely a force to be reckoned with when their forces combine. That is where their knowledge and skill really comes out to play, is when they can turn around a game where you can see your team is mentally falling apart, making silly errors, and to get them back in the game, to turn it back around in such an extreme way, is just so impressive.
And even I said to you, like, when we had the first half and T-Birds were doing so well, even though they were doing so well and they had the pressure and they were getting ball, it still felt like they weren't playing at 100. And I was very impressed that they were still having such a good impact, not playing at 100. As the game went on, I guess I was also hoping that it would step up and we'd see them play closer, but it didn't really feel. If anything, I actually felt like the T-Birds got more quiet and we started to see a bit of disconnect through their attack.
Particularly with Shamira, she got very quiet.
Yes, and I almost want to pinpoint it down to, I know we know that she has had a bit of an injury that she's been nursing at the moment, which could be playing, but after that knock with Helen Housby was probably where I really noticed that Shamira really quietened down, and she, for the remainder of the game, she played a lot behind Grace Nowicki, which on any other normal shooter, that's a good way that she usually gets ball because she can flick it. But with someone as tall as Grace and with it not working, I was surprised that we didn't see someone as smart as Sterling adjust and get in the front position, because when she was in the front position, she would get ball. But then she just played behind, and there were times where the arms wouldn't even go up. So I'm just wondering, like,
well, there were
what
moments,
else is going on
once
there?
Once that momentum shift had occurred, there definitely seemed to be a lack of energy coming from Shamira. Like, I'm not sure why, because we never see that from her. She does not get deterred by a scoreline. You know, she is always delivering. And obviously we don't know the ins and outs of that, as to the commentators made similar observations, is that she just wasn't her normal self on the court.
Definitely not. No, there's something going on there. You know, sometimes injuries can impact you more than others, or sometimes we just have an off day. And I think, you know, Grace Nowicki took the opportunity. She thought, you know what? No, this is my moment. I'm gonna I'm going to show dominance in this circle, and she did.
Hey, good for her.
Yeah, I mean, hey, she's really, stamping her name in the competition, as you should.
Well, everyone really wanted to see these two coming up against each other.
This would have been, I think this was like the most anticipated matchup of
100%.
weekend. Yeah.
So, I mean, I can only imagine that would be a lot of pressure to feel like you have to perform as well in that kind of situation when you know everyone is waiting to see you play against this one particular player.
But you know what? It's a shame because in a way I would have loved to seen Grace at 100 and Shamira at 100 going for it.
I'm sure we will at some point. Yeah. Like, there's no doubt that they're obviously going to come up against each other again. And, hopefully nothing gets in the way of that, no injuries or anything like that. Because 100% we want to see these two teams go at it again. It was definitely the competition that we had wanted by halftime. By first quarter, we were a little bit deflated. We're like, okay, what's happening?
We know where this is going.
But as spectators, we were very excited to watch the challenge unfold as intensely as we had expected.
Yeah, and it was really good actually seeing like Swifts just knuckle down and power through, because almost like T-Bird's attack, it was like they were caught off guard, and they were like, we don't have a plan for this. This isn't how things normally go. So in a way, like, if you're going to be challenged, this is the best time to be challenged in the season. I'd much rather, being a team, I'd rather be challenged in the earlier games than on the late end where it matters a little bit more.
Yeah.
But, that also being said, to be the best, you got to beat the best. And Swifts have just done that, so I wonder.
Let's chat about the fact that the penalty count was insane.
Yeah.
Insane. Very, very early on, you could see that the Swifts penalty count was just through the roof in comparison to T-Birds. T-Birds were quite clean, quite controlled, quite calm.
Yeah, I think towards the end of the first quarter, it was 2-11. Something wild.
It was
within that first 10 minutes. And, but Swifts are known to be a very heavily contacted, their penalty counts
they
are very
handed
high.
it to T-Birds on a platter in that first quarter because of just releasing all of that pressure, because they were constantly out of play.
Yeah.
And then obviously you saw the changes come from the coaching team, and, we saw a pretty immediate turnaround after that. I wanted to point out the commentators actually said that the only player that didn't cause a turnaround was Paige Hadley.
Yeah, which is just,
like, for the Swifts team. So, well done, Paigey. But I'm so excited to see her commentating. We'll talk about that later, but, like, I really want to chat about, like, Kate, Maloney commentating and everything, because I think they did such a great job. And I love seeing them on there.
Yeah.
Like, you get to, wait, Alexa, wait to that bit. We saw Verity had a couple of surprise penalties that is very unlike her. So we saw her benched and replaced with Grace White, who obviously was a good decision from the coaching team in this occasion because of how things changed from there on. I'm not sure why we saw that from Verity. It's definitely, it's just not the kind of player she normally is.
Yeah, and I think it was almost like that. It's just also, I don't know, I feel like there's one thing, contesting a ball and putting defensive pressure, and there's another thing just doing silly contacts. Like, if you're stood side by side somebody on the transverse line going like that, you're not going to get the ball, you're just going to get called out. So that's where I'd like to see a little bit more discipline from the Swifts in that regard. Contest the ball that is worth a chance getting, but if it's silly things where you're obstructing or you're delaying play, it's
there was
not
a moment there where her arms were pinning the player back.
Yeah.
I think Latanya Wilson, she was pinning Latanya back so then she could drive forward, but it was so clear that she was pinning her back. So obviously in those situations, it's just, okay, well, I think Latanya is just outplaying in this scenario and
so I think the change. Yeah, I think the change happening at the right time, and that's one thing that I think Bryony did really well, is she knew when a change needed to be made and she made it.
It's nothing against Verity, obviously. Like, we cluster as our MVP for last round. She is an incredible player. Yeah. It was just, for some reason, these errors were made. But hey, onwards and upwards.
Yeah. And I think there were errors like that throughout the whole team.
Oh, throughout, obviously. So the Swifts clawed back in the third quarter. The scoreline tightened to just 1 goal in the super shot time. And when it gets to that tight in the super shot time against Swifts with Housby, that is when the panic sets in. That is when they are going to put their foot down, go hard, and Housby is going to get them 10 goals ahead. And she pretty much did exactly that. She did exactly what she's expected to do in those clutch moments, as we all know she is incredible at. And she shot those super shots, and the game was pretty much Swifts from then on, because Thunderbirds could not crawl back after that deficit.
And Thunderbirds are also notably a team that don't really tend to go for the super shots either.
Well, they've never really needed to, do they?
They've not needed to.
With Romelda.
Yeah. Speaking of Romelda, though, she really quietened up.
Yeah.
I did notice at 1 minute, and this is where I think as well, we know that she's obviously had the ongoing knee, but I did notice she took a particular ball and she sort of stumbled back, and then she threw it behind her as she was falling, and once again from that moment she'd really like quietened up. So I wonder, like, are these injuries, I know clubs don't always divulge the severity of injuries, but now seeing things like that, and in players like Sterling and Romelda, I'm now thinking, are these injuries a little bigger than we think they are?
God, I hope not. I really hope not, because I do love watching T-Birds. They do play such beautiful netball. When you see how smoothly it works for T-Birds 99% of the time. Obviously not all the time. But I must admit, it's also nice to see that they're beatable.
Exactly. And you know what that would have done? All these other teams would have gone, maybe that would have taken that little bit of pressure off of the other teams, thinking, okay, so they can be beaten.
It's kind of reminiscent of Fever last season, wasn't it? They had such a beautiful run where, it started feeling like, are they beatable? I think they won like 8 games in a row or something. It was insane.
I think it was like 6 from memory.
Yeah, such a beautiful run, to the point where,
and
everyone was wondering.
Figured out.
They got figured out.
So is this what's happening? Because also this round as well, statistically, Swifts have never, ever lost a round 3 game. But T-Birds were also 10 games undefeated in their home stadium.
You mentioned Romelda looked like she had a little bit of a tweak, an injury potentially flaring back up. I think we definitely saw her head wasn't 100% in the game for this. Perhaps it was because of the big Milestone pressure that we'll chat about later. But it definitely felt like she was just a little bit off with her balance, with her takes. It just wasn't the Romelda we're normally used to seeing on this day. So we did see her benched, in favour of Lucy Austin. It did also have me wondering why Garrett was benched for so long. I thought that the Garrett-Shamira combo in the defence end with Latanya out at WD was actually working quite well for them. I'm not sure why that sudden change happened, and then I don't think we saw Garrett back on court for the rest of the 4th quarter. So I'd love to know the reasons behind that.
And also Lauren Frew coming off
at
a GA, and then when Georgie usually swings into that GA position, we usually see quite a big lift, but it almost felt like it just wasn't enough in this game. Thunderbirds just attack. They just really struggled with the right combination, particularly because I think, to Swift's credit, their defence was really great. And I mean, Tegan O'Shaughnessy, when she came on, oh my God.
Goodness.
Talk about an impact player.
Oh my God.
She absolutely tore it up. I think one of the commentators was saying that typically last season, I think she got like six intercepts or deflections or something, and she got 6 in that game alone. Like, she just came out on fire.
And against Romelda.
Exactly. She had an amazing game.
T-Birds made a pretty surprising change. So obviously we mentioned Romelda wasn't on her A game, and so she was benched in favour of Lucy Austin, which was amazing to see, because we have said time and time again, Lucy Austin, she's in the Diamonds camp. She needs to have more opportunities and minutes on the court. So this was a great chance for her to do exactly that. The surprise was that we actually saw her paired up with the rookie Graham. So we didn't see Georgie come back into GA, which she actually played a full half in, I think. And we didn't see Frew come back on either, which was a really, I want to say, a brave coaching decision.
Yeah.
To bring on your impact player in Lucy and then a rookie when you are that down in the game. And I would assume you would need a lot of trust for your team in the attacking end. I would say I was surprised that was the choice that she made. At the same time, great opportunities for those girls to get out there. It was a risky coaching call, but I think by that point it was a little bit too late, and the Swifts had well and truly cemented their momentum.
But even towards the end of the game, when Shamira sort of started to get a couple of deflections, or the defence would do some tips, it was like it got all the way to the attack end, and then it was just lost again. So it was just a little too late by the end. Yeah,
we annoyingly lost the scoreboard from the screen for the most of the fourth quarter. Like, I was messaging you. I wasn't even sure which quarter it was. I was like so discombobulated with the time. I was like, wait, what's the score? How much longer is this? Is this the third quarter?
Yeah, because I think it went out in the third quarter at about 7 minutes left. But even on the app, the score was wrong.
Oh, was it?
The score kept changing, and then the score wasn't updating the time. It didn't have the correct time.
So annoying.
And this is really disappointing because this is like the second time we've seen a scoreboard issue to date. The Fever home game as well, where there was no in-stadium score. So
like, I just don't know what causes those tech issues. Like, obviously tech issues are tech issues, but these aren't like new creative concepts that they're bringing into. These are just scores.
Yeah, but at this level, it shouldn't be happening.
It absolutely shouldn't. So, it is really, really unacceptable, to be honest. We saw O'Shaughnessy have MVP. As you mentioned, she had 6 intercepts. Absolutely phenomenal performance from her. We also need to talk about the big milestone of this game, and this was Romelda Aiken breaking an incredible record. So 233 games. I'm so glad this happened at a home game for them. Although like the score didn't go how they wanted, obviously, it was so beautiful for her to be surrounded by not only her teammates and her family, but the whole Thunderbirds community, which we've touched on before, feels like such a strong, supportive community that rallies around the Thunderbirds girls. And so we saw Shamira being so emotional and supportive of clearly a really close friend of hers. And I was tearing up watching this. I'm one of those people that I cry when I see other people cry. I get very like emotionally invested. And it was just really beautiful. I loved it.
Yeah, no, it was really great. And it's an incredible achievement.
Yeah, congratulations, Romelda. Still playing after all this time and still absolutely smashing it. Still winning premierships. Like bow to Romelda at this point. Like, congratulations, babe. Especially after overcoming all of the naysayers after like when at the end of her time at Firebirds. And it just goes to show it was never about capability. It was always around mindset and support system. Let's bring our personal MVP segment in. So for me, it's actually Matisse Leatherbauer. I thought that she did amazing. She dominated and she has grown so much. From the point where we would see her come on as a little bit of an impact player, and we knew that she could shoot those 2 points from anywhere, but you could see the confidence wasn't quite there and the accuracy was affected by that. Whereas now, that girl comes on, she turns, she shoots.
That's one thing I really love about her is that's what you want from a shooter. Catch the ball, turn, shoot. And she does that, and I really love that for her. I think it's just really exciting watching her play.
I really think she's kind of like an inspirational story for players like Olivia Wilkinson, who we've seen kind of have a similar debut and then fall off a little bit and feel that pressure and be weak on takes and still have a lot of growth to do in that regard. But to see how Matisse has already achieved that should be very inspirational for players like Olivia.
Yeah, and I only hope she gets more court time.
Absolutely. What about you, Jenna?
Well, my play for the round would have to be Tegan O'Shaughnessy.
Yeah.
I thought she just did...
You love a defender.
I love a defender. I'm an attacker, but I love a defender. I have such a soft spot. But I think she did everything that you want from an impact player. She came on and instantly turned ball for her team. She stepped up when it was needed and she was consistent, and I just thought she just had such a great impact on that side. She lifted the defense end and she just did what she was supposed to. So
absolutely smashed it.
Yeah.
Let's talk headlines from the week. Now, there aren't that many, fair enough, but there are a few takes that I think we wanted to chat about. The first of which was I made a TikTok and a reel about this, and I had quite a lot of engagement about it. And that is the Nissan net points have disappeared. So Nissan is no longer the sponsor of the net points, which is fair enough. They don't have to be. But I do want it back as a regular feature during commentary and on the screen throughout the games. This was one of my favorite additions to the SSN a couple of years ago, because the thing is, when you're watching the games, you can be distracted by the showmanship of some of the athletes doing incredible things, like your Shamira Sterlings. What you don't necessarily notice is the workhorses in the centre court, those middies.
The silent achievers.
Silent achievers, clocking away, doing their job, but they are on the leaderboard because of their contribution to the game and their team's progress. And I like seeing that. When I put this up on my reel, I did actually get a message from Bianca Chatfield about this. So she did essentially inform me that the net points do still exist and that the Nissan just no longer sponsors it. But she did say that she will, for me, try to get the insertion of discussing it back into the commentary. I'm sure she was probably joking. You know, if my comments section is anything to go by, a lot of people want it back. Well, Jenna has just informed me that apparently all of this information is accessible from Champion Data.
It's all Champion Data.
So I'll put the website on the screen for you if you're interested in going and checking that out. Me personally, I'm probably never going to actively go to that website and check. I still want the commentators to talk about it. So we had Kate Maloney make her debut on the commentary team this weekend, which I absolutely loved. First of all, my gosh, like baby pink is her colour, like pretty much what you're wearing right now, absolutely looked stunning. But yes, you could obviously hear there a little bit of nerves and it takes a little bit of polishing around. You know, I guess having to know all of the sponsor names of things like the Suncorp Super Shot. We saw a couple of, you know, moments there where they were just pretty much making up names for the Super Shot at one point. Other than that, honestly, she did such a great job. She comes across so warm and lovely and of course incredibly knowledgeable as a diamond. And captain of the Vixens. Absolutely loved seeing the commentating team, including current diamonds.
And I actually really like that because they're giving a bit of more of an insight into the current playing climate. Really enjoyed having her there. And next week we have Paige Hadley too.
Yes.
So that will be really exciting because they're both such great netball brains as well.
And I just love seeing that there's more careers for the players within the netball, you know, world, that there's progression and career options for them once they do want to retire from playing. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room. And that is Fowler-Nembhard coming back to SSN. Jenna, can you give us a bit of an update?
So there hasn't been a confirmed date yet, but as far as we know, her 4 weeks notice to return has been served. And she's currently waiting on the tick of approval from the high performance team. Now, we've seen her at trainings, we've seen her traveling with the team to games. This return is imminent, and as far as we know, it could possibly be as soon as next week.
Well, I believe there was a list of training partners announced, wasn't
So
there?
Fever announced their reserves team list this week with Kamwenda named on the list. So that has sort of then created a bit of a buzz thinking, okay, this can't be that far, which we know it's not far. It's just a big matter of when. We could essentially see her as early as next week if she's fit and raring to go. Or
Very
even
exciting.
the week after first Fever home game. What a welcome back.
God.
Second Fever home game. What a welcome back.
Look, I'm very, very excited, but also not because they're playing Lightning for that home game.
Could this be what they've been waiting for? Will this be the change?
I mean, how do you feel being such a long-term devotee of Fever? How do you feel about, I guess, the conversation around their dependency on Fowler?
I feel like she brings so much to the side in the sense of leadership and stability, and I think that is something that we've almost seen the Fever missing and very obviously missing. So I think bringing her into the team will be a huge vote of confidence for everyone on the court.
Yeah.
And I think that will be what lifts Fever out of this slump.
It's going to lift the fan base as well, especially after a few hard losses. Yeah. Everyone's feeling, a little bit deflated, as you can imagine. Oh my gosh, how the girls would be feeling after that. Hopefully that pressure doesn't get to Janelle.
But I mean, if anyone can take it, she can.
Yeah.
She is going to have so much support. I wouldn't even be surprised if we see some sort of standing ovation on her first home game back, because I know I'll be standing.
Yeah, me too.
But it's just, I think it's such just an incredible thing for her to be able to come back and feel like she's in a position and ready to return.
As a Fever fan, as a Fever community, it's really important for us to rally around her in this moment, particularly given some of the really harsh and unfair discourse online that has just seemed to conveniently forget that she's, a human being who went through an incredibly traumatic event very recently. So I want to be part of making that safe space for her.
Exactly. And I hope that she's just as warmly received everywhere, which I think at the end of the day, the netball community is a good community.
Yes.
And I hope that she will be. But I just think, it will just be such a huge thing for her to come back and just take that spot.
We love you, Janelle. Can't wait to see you out there. Now, this segment was the bit that I wanted to chat about because I watched the Liz Watson and Bianca Chatfield interview Sunday night, so last night. The most important thing that I took away from watching this was just how hard it actually was to watch Liz relive being the captain of the Diamonds during arguably the toughest time the Diamonds have ever been put through, which was the whole Gina Reinhart and all of the media attention and scrutiny around that, all of the, lies that had been spread online, and then for Liz to have to be the face in that situation. She mentioned how she was definitely not prepared for how harsh a lot of the media were towards her, what the questions were like, and we have never experienced anything like that. Like, we don't know what that feels like at all. So it was really eye-opening to, get that viewpoint of just how harsh it was. To just hear how Bianca describe Liz handling this with such grace is just beautiful to hear, not only as an elite athlete and a woman, but as the captain of the Australian team and a representative of our sport and our country. Yeah, I just have such a deep respect for her and how she handled this. Like I mentioned before, I'm someone who cries when other people cry. I get very emotionally invested in things. So I did tear up watching the ladies tear up and talking about this. So I remember distinctly seeing the comments on certain Fox or Code articles or just publications in general, and how horrific the commentary was by the general bigger public towards the Diamonds. The responsibility of being the face of that, can't even imagine how hard that would have been. Another point she talked about was how strong her friendship with Steph Fretwell was, and how that was a huge pillar of support during her entire experience of being the captain of the Diamonds during the World Cup, during the contracts debacle, during the Gina Reinhart chaos. I thought that was really beautiful that she made a real point to highlight that friendship. I really loved seeing Bianca do this interview with Liz because they clearly have a huge history and strong friendship between them. I found this out recently with the article interview that Liz did with Lisa Alexander, is that Liz is actually studying to be a primary school teacher. So she comes from not only a family of athletes, but a family of teachers, which I had no idea about. I guess you just assume that the captain of the Diamonds is going to go on to be a commentator, or a public figure in netball, but that doesn't seem to be what she wants to do. I've mentioned to you before, I can't imagine being like a mum who then had to have a parent-teacher meeting with Liz Watson. That would be a wild experience. Also found out that she is an Italian-Australian, just like me. So clearly we are destined to be best friends. I really like the quote that she mentions is something that she lives by, that her mum has instilled in her, which is that actions speak louder than words. And I think we really see that in Liz and how she has encapsulated that throughout her career, especially even when she has been the captain of the Vixens and the Diamonds, and we don't really hear her as a loud voice in those huddles. We never really have heard her voice. It's more been that she leads by example and her performance on the court. Another thing that was really interesting was Bianca asked Liz who she thinks would be a great replacement for her as the future leader of the Diamonds team, and her picks were Sunday Arian, Jamie Lee Price and Kira Austin, who she said all show really strong, promising leadership skills. Let's talk about our predictions for next week. So again, it's going to be the second half of our split round. So who have we got playing next week?
So we have Lightning versus Firebirds and then Fever versus Vixens.
So we already talked in depth about our predictions for this round in our last video. So feel free to go back to that video. It's all time segmented if you want to go straight to it. We'll just do a quick recap. Loki can't remember exactly what I said. I think I gave the win to Lightning, and then Fever, Vixens, I think we gave it to Fever because Janelle's going to be back.
If she's back, yeah.
Who did you predict for Lightning Firebirds?
I'd say the same, but I think it will be a close match. I think towards their last game, Lightning showed a lot of frustration in their attack end. So as long as they can iron that out, and depending on what Steph plays, I would be tipping more towards Lightning.
I hope that we see Steph back at 100% in her GA position. That would obviously be ideal. Otherwise, for goodness sake, rest the girl. I think we were talking about, yes, how what worked really well against Firebirds was those Ruth coming out in the 45 and getting those intercepts before they're fed into Mary. It would be great to see Irvin against Mary Chollock, and also Bruce doing what Bruce does best, which is coming out for those intercepts on the fly. I just wanted to quickly break the fourth wall in regards to how much everyone's support really, really means to me. I get the loveliest DMs and messages from you guys, and I just want you to know how much work goes into bringing this show. We're only in our third episode, and with all of the preparation, the setup, the filming, the editing, basically trying to get it out to you guys as fast as possible, it takes absolute hours. Like I would average at 8 to 10 hours of obviously like unpaid work that we do from love and passion. Your support literally means everything. It means so much. So don't forget to chat to us in the comments section, subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share it with your friends. If you're listening on Spotify, please leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy it. I checked this the other day and 6 people already have left us a 5-star review. So thank you so much to those 6 people. You are absolutely amazing. And yeah, that's it for us this week. And we'll see you next week for the second half of round 3.